Hey guys, welcome back. So real quick, let's talk about this Morbius trailer, because prior to this point, I just didn't know how to feel. And I still kind of got some reservations, not gonna front, but after seeing that first trailer and getting a glimpse of Jared Leto going full Morbius, I have to admit I liked it a lot. But even still, I gotta say, my main concern is what will Sony decide to do with the story. And I mean, for most of that, we get a good idea through the trailer where they're going, which appears to be like your origin film, which also is something I don't mind for characters who haven't got their own live action film. But from what I can see, it's like they're sticking to the comic book origin for the most part, with Dr. Michael Morbius being your extremely intelligent, Nobel Prize winning biochemist who back in the comics, like in your Amazing Spider-Man like issue 101, 102, he had came up with this super risky method to cure his disease by manufacturing new blood cells through the use of shock therapy in the genes of vampire bats. Because hey, what could go wrong, right? But for the most part, it seems like they're staying true to the narrative from the comics, because with this procedure being straight up illegal, he did have to make his attempt to do it over international waters. But in the case of the film, I'm pretty sure that this is what the chopper scene is all about, because when he flies out to this undisclosed area to get to more vampire bats, clearly like you can see dude in the background just counting the money that he was paid to bring this crazy doctor out here who just might kill himself. But even still, with his origin not seeming to be your exact one-to-one, I do feel like Sony's making a conscious effort to create like your modern version as close as possible to the source material, which is cool. As far as I'm concerned, the origin thing, it seems solid, but what I'm trying to figure out is like how exactly these films are blending with the MCU. And I mean, like, I understand what it is right now with Sony having the rights to make references to either Spider-Man Homecoming or Spider-Man Far From Home, and really just any of their MCU movies, but I can't help but feel like in a way that they're trying to experiment and bolster other characters that they could eventually lease into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that could really just be me, but I also feel like they really wanted you to know, like, we did Spider-Man Homecoming, we did Spider-Man Far From Home, we did Venom, which is one of those things that I get where studios want to promote their successes when they're putting out a new film, but in a landscape with shared universes, I think that's gonna kind of confuse some people. And like, for whatever reason, I feel like I'm just bombing on this trailer, but I'm not, because I'm gonna see Morbius regardless. I just hope that one, they deliver the story well, because for me with Venom, the story worked, and they made it work in a way without necessarily tying Peter Parker to the Venom symbiote. But even still with Venom, you can feel like certain things were rushed, and you can tell that they didn't have as much time as they would have liked to just to invest into a more polished story. And for me, at least in my opinion, in that one particular area, like that's where I want to see the improvement in the Morbius film, which I feel like they will do. And really a lot of that feeling is just a whole lot of hope, because essentially this trailer, which was perfect by the way by not giving too much information and not giving too little, because as far as trailers go, like standing alone, the trailer sold me. Because I mean, just look at the guy, like it's super comic book accurate. But speaking of comic book accurate, like this just popped in my head just now, but one of the things that I'm kind of concerned about is like them differentiating the difference between actual vampires, which had existed in Marvel Comics well before Morbius, but then also living vampires, which is exactly what Morbius is, like your pseudo vampire who looks like a vampire, has many of their abilities like super senses and hypnotism. And I think the hypnotism wasn't something that came to like later on if I'm not mistaken. But essentially with living vampires who also have super strength and healing factor, the craving for blood, and vulnerability to sunlight, even though exposure to sunlight won't kill a living vampire, versus actual vampires in Marvel Comics, to which we've gotten a lot of like low-key references to lately. And I mean from as recent as references throughout Absolute Carnage, and even your swirly symbol for Noel, which we went a lot deeper into in our Cult of Carnage video. But all of that points back to Chthon in the ancient book of spells called the Darkhold, of which has its own history in the ancient city of Atlantis, to where at one point in time these sorcerers of Atlantis, they were at war and they used the Darkhold to resurrect vampires to fight on their behalf, but the vampires pretty much killed all the sorcerers. And if I remember correctly, this then spilled into like one of your origins of Dracula, where he was one of the surviving sorcerers who later on tried to get the Darkhold again, but he was stopped by the X-Men. But even aside from that, we've gotten references to this ancient city of Atlantis, to where these sorcerers came from, in your recent issues of your Jonathan Hickman Excalibur, which totally caught me by surprise. But I digress. But essentially, I'm excited for this movie. I'm excited for Jared Leto in the role, and I kind of feel like Jared Leto has got a bad rap for some of the younger generation, and perhaps for his role of playing that other guy in the DCEU. And I say other guy because that wasn't the Joker, man. but Jared Leto is a solid actor, and I feel like this is gonna be a better opportunity for him to make his way into a comic book franchise. And like I said, all I care about is the story. Just make the story look good. I know it's gonna look great as far as the effects and everything, but at the end of the day, just tell a good story. Because really, if this movie does well and Sony goes to like their next step, whether it was like Silver Sable or whichever other films they said they were gonna do, like it's changed so much recently that I've forgotten, which is why for a good while I forgot about the Morbius movie. Because it's at one point they're doing Sinister Six, they also mentioned Silver Sable, and there's another one that I cannot remember right now. And at one point I just kind of went into this, okay, I'll just believe it as I see it. And it's like now with this trailer, I see it, I like what I'm seeing, and I'm hoping it's a progression of these newer Sony films getting better and better. And really that's it. Like I just wanted to share a few of my thoughts because I would love this thing like in a perfect world, where Marvel Studios and Sony work together in harmony. It would be nice to see Sony take some of the pressure off of Marvel and still have like Kevin Feige be like your editor-in-chief who says like, okay, this is what you can do, this is what you can't, and for us to have that give us a definitive playground for like Sony MCU connected movies. Because at this point, much like Venom, Morbius isn't connected, at least not fully, because you do have Spider-Man who is wanted, and you do have the Vulture who's like still locked up or just broke out of jail or something, but at this point there's like no definitive answer. But I do like how they gave us a bit of an Easter egg of him on the ship, where at like one point in time in the trailer he was like just going through the ship and just like tearing people apart left and right with a very horror like tone, because once again in the comics that was like one of the first like times we had seen him feed, like back in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 101 or 102, because he was in both of them. I just can't remember right now like which one was the one when he was tearing the people on the ship apart. But as far as like what I mentioned about like Michael Keaton, the Vulture, showing up at the end of this trailer, like at this point I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse and be like, oh, this confirms everything, because along with the Spider-Man poster, these could be just pieces in the film that are just kind of thrown in there and done so like in a very neutral way, to where it's like, okay, if this film doesn't do good, then they're like, oh, well, that didn't mean anything, just throw it away. Because when the film comes out, they may be things that are just brushed over that aren't exactly explored within the story of the film, which make it super flexible whether the film does good or not. Because if it's done right, like the possibility for crossovers with like Blade and Ghost Rider, Spider-Man, Dracula, and living vampires versus actual vampires, like the idea has a lot of potential for where it could go. But hey, for all I know, they figured all that out. It's gonna be in the movie, and next thing you know, summer rolls around and everything's connected. But we'll see how that goes. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Just want to give like my first impressions, because still it's very early and this is like our first look at pretty much anything. But last thing that I do want to add is like, I am curious to see like how they'll handle like the blood drinking and all the blood that needs to be taken and shown in this film, with also keeping it at a PG-13 rating. Because at this point in time, the film is not yet rated, but even still PG-13 is highly likely what it'll be. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Quick shout out to all the Patreons, and let me know like down in the comments like what are your thoughts on this first trailer? Are you all in? Are you a bit hesitant? Because like I said, for me, I'm gonna see the film regardless, because I believe that it just has the potential to be a good standalone film. And so like with all the connective gray areas set to the side, like I believe it'll be something that's worth watching. And hopefully, like just hopefully, it'll match the tone of this first trailer and it'll blow us away. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I really want to see what you guys think on this one. But let me know in the comments below, and we'll do it again in the next one. Alright, later.